This will be a feature-length interview with my classmate and second-year student anesthesiologist assistant, Nate. He's 36 years old with a background in financial services, medical laboratory sciences, and was an anesthesia technician. On top of that, he's a father to a 1-year-old daughter, and he's one of my close friends. Please welcome Nathan Shortridge. Welcome, Nate. Glad to have you, finally.
Good to be here. I'm glad to finally be here. It's been a long time coming, but we finally got a chance to get together.
It's been a long semester. Nate and I have been studying together for all of third semester pretty much. So
yeah.
We finally caught a break. Got a chance to
break.
Got a break after finals. Got a chance to sit down and do this little podcast.
First of all, thanks for even inviting me to do the podcast. But my name is Nathan. Everyone calls me Nate Shortridge. South Florida raised, and I'm a student, AA student.
Yeah, so we're now just starting our second year, right?
Yeah.
So you have 1 year under your belt.
It's exciting and nerve-wracking, I can tell you that much. Just knowing that we literally have a class underneath us right now, it's invigorating, it's exhilarating, it's, feels like we're achieving so much, but at the same time, we're literally getting closer to the end, and it's also, nail biting because we're gonna be in the OR almost full time in a few months. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
So how much time do you spend in the OR right now?
Right now, it's literally about 10 or 8 to 10, with a maximum maybe of 16 hours for the week.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
It's not bad at all.
For my job, I usually get in at 6 a.m., do a little bit of setup. My preceptor will meet me at 6:30. First case at 7:30. Have a few cases that day, and I'm out of there by 2 p.m.
On my site, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit slower compared to my first site that I was, but and I'm one that likes to get there 5:30 a.m. just to be able to set up and do everything at my own pace. And then usually first case starts at 8. We have some times where the cases start at 7:30. I'm able to get breakfast, which is totally different from compared to my last site. And in between time, there are usually longer cases. It's a lot of plastics, a lot of orthopedic cases. Yeah. So usually sit in one, maybe if I'm lucky 2 cases, but done by 2 p.m. on my way out, and I'm grateful.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous before starting my current rotation. I heard that it's challenging, or you got sort of grilled and pimped a lot, but I think it's been pretty good. And then they have high expectations, but they want you to do well. They mean the best, and they do so to sort of invigorate you and get you going a little bit. But there's also free food, and they take care of you. So they're rough, but it's tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Tough love.
That's the so I'm coming from somewhere where it was just like that, and I was nervous on the flip side because I thought this place that I was going to, everyone was telling me, it was oh, it's so slow, you'll barely get any opportunity to do X, Y, or Z, and stepping into the place, it definitely is a lot slower compared to the last site that I was doing my last clinical rotation. But I learned a lot more here for some reason. I guess I don't know if it's my preceptors.
I think it's the stage of the game, because when you're in your first clinical site, you're just getting used to the flow of things, and then the more time you spend here, I guess you get to pick up on all the other details and expound on any mistakes you made in the past, correct, and notice the little details.
No, I could definitely agree with that. I just thought the volume of the cases wouldn't allow me to learn as much, but I guess having less is more in this case, because I do less cases for the day, but they're so saturated with information throughout the whole 2, 3, 4. My last day was this Tuesday, and it was a 4-hour case that I sat in, and I learned so much just asking little questions, and like you were saying, once you get over the pace of everything, then you can actually start to apply the knowledge that we actually learn in the classroom and to see how it actually works in actual clinical settings. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned that what you expected to be sort of boring turned out to be like a good learning environment because
Yeah.
I think it was probably my first or second week at my site that I'm at now, and we got sent up to endo, and endoscopy is sort of like considered like boring and easy, but we had like a heart failure patient or had like an ejection fraction between probably like 10 and 20%, so it was down there, and it was one of those like hard max. You'd think that the max would be easy, the general cases would be like the challenging ones, but this guy was a little bit more challenging. We had to give him etomidate. We had to like carefully manage his blood pressure and things like that. We had him, cycling every 2 minutes. And I just remember it being like a really more hands-on case. And at a certain point, one of his IVs started to like start failing, started not doing well. So I had to like swoop in and get another 18 gauge in the hand. And thankfully, like got it quickly. He started like almost getting a little bit too light, and so we are able to
Oh man.
get the new IV established and get some more propofol going.
Oh, that uh, one thing that was just is like your lifeline is that IV line. So it's just to even think that you're doing a MAC case and you're relying on that sucker and you have an infiltrated or failed IV line. It's just one of those tricky situations where you got to literally collect yourself, get back to ground zero, understand that you know how to handle this, and go in and handle it. Hats off, sir.
So now that you're at like the cusp between first and second year, how much do you think you know? Like, would you rate your, you know, because 1 year is not a long time on paper to have gone from minimal healthcare experience to now like really being responsible for patients. So like, how well do you think that year prepared you?
Um, I always thought I had some type of background. I was an anesthesia tech before, but and the pace that we had to learn at was crazy because and you'll hear this over and over again. It's like drinking through a fire hose. But when I'm out there and I'm getting asked questions or I'm seeing something on either any of my monitors, just to be able to regurgitate and then actually address the situation, I feel like I know a lot more than I think I do, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Because it's like
And you might have doubts, and then your preceptor will ask you a question, and like, oh, you know exactly the answer, and you can tell them like to the T.
and it's like that, and it's crazy how fast it really comes up, or where I don't know which reaches of my brain that this thing had took a seat in, and I didn't use it to or even know when to recall it. But when it's time to recall it, it's there. It's the answer is present either when it's with my patient or it's a question from my preceptor. But I definitely feel like the year went by. I felt nervous as far as what I actually knew, but every day that I actually step into that clinical site or that clinical environment, I realize that I know a lot more than I think I do.
I agree. I think pretty much the whole year. Correct me if your experience was different, but you're on the edge of your seat. You're really like at the very limit of your comfort zone, and so that gets you learning a lot faster than you think. And
Oh my God.
I also like compare it sometimes to like maybe like a study abroad, like immersion program where you get thrown in the deep end, and you're just from all angles. Like I know my life is pretty much like all anesthesia at this point.
Oh, definitely. And everything that I look at is, and I even told my preceptor, I was asking my preceptor, it's like, is it weird that I'm checking out environmental distance when I'm walking through Publix? He was like, nope, I do it all the time. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I have this skill. Okay, that person will probably be easy to intubate. And I'm looking and doing this on my shopping, doing this standing in line. It's crazy, but like being, just like you said, being thrown into the deep end and having to figure out what is the best way to absorb all this information so you're able to not only perform for tests but make sure you're taking care of your patient on the clinical side. So
Yeah, and that's also another question people ask is like, how much time do you spend studying? Well, when I say like the lines get blurry because you'll wake up And your whole day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, you're thinking about anesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
And now you may not be studying that whole time, but let's say you wake up, you drive to clinic. The whole time you're in the car, you're thinking about what you're going to do that day. How are you going to be prepared? What kind of cases you might do. And then you're there at clinic, you put in your 8-hour shift and you come back to class. You're studying for maybe a quiz before class. And then after class, what do? You meet up with your friends. What do you talk about?
Anesthesia.
Anesthesia.
That's so. It's the.
You talk about the quiz, you talk about what your day at clinic was like, and then, even when you're hanging out with your friends, you guys are talking about, oh, today we used like a lidocaine infusion, or we used Presidex, or we used whatever, or my patient had this, that, or the other. And
And I want to say that it consumes us. We're so excited to be in the clinical side, especially just being in a classroom for so long, and we finally get a chance to step out and do what we've been studying or learning through these books. And once we get that experience, we I found that I've learned so much from my classmates or the cohort
yep.
because they tell me their experiences, what they've gone through, the questions that they've been asking, and I sometimes that sticks a lot harder than looking at the PowerPoint or reading it in a book, because that's actual first-hand experience. And I don't know about anybody else, but I would rather learn from somebody else's mistake.
Yep.
Honestly. So like if you made a mistake and we're all in a group and we're talking about it, and you tell me what you did and you tell me what you should have done and how your preceptor corrected you, that is seared into my brain. Not only my mistakes, but others' mistakes, because I feel like the wise person learns from the other man's mistakes. So that's, but yeah, man, it's so many. We're drowning, surrounded in anesthesia. And if you want to talk about from the morning, for the moment I wake up to the moment I'm going to sleep, I might be reciting something, or just, even if I'm not with a paper in front of me or something, I know it's running through my head, and it's insane. But
Yeah, I
I
know.
actually like it.
In my kitchen, my fridge has like my standard lab values, all that written out. I know your phone lock screen. What's on your phone lock screen?
My lock screen is actually our drug screen, our drug sheet, just our dosages, concentrations of the most frequent drugs that we use. So, and then on my computer lock screen is my lab values for chemistry, coag, and CBC. So it's one of those things where it's repetition at the same
Yep.
time, but it's also one of those things that I want to look at, just to be on, because even if I'm driving in the car and it's not even something that, or not driving, but like standing in line, ready to get something for lunch, and I'm thinking about, I don't know, some type of coagulation, I might just pull open my phone and look for what the times were for APT, PT, and INR, just to be like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just to like make sure I know, like, okay, you're right. But it's
And then when you get to the clinic, it's a whole nother level, because you just start seeing this stuff. It becomes part of your daily language. You start talking like, oh, what were their lab results? What was their potassium? I see like their urine's looking this way. I see that their skin looks this way. Like, have we drawn labs for them? Like, when's the last time? Yeah. And so you get to like sort of run down these decision making trees, and all of that. I think the most interesting part is it doesn't necessarily feel like you're really studying all the time,
yeah.
but deep down, like you are actually
You
learning
actually
for the majority of the day.
You're definitely learning throughout the day. You're definitely studying. And I feel like most time when you're actually sitting down, like going, for me, this semester was a lot of trying to be, or doing my best. Doing my best to be ahead of the curve. So before we went over a lesson, just glance over it so it doesn't sound foreign when I stepped in the classroom. Those were the main times that I actually studied, because going back over it after the class was like a breeze, because it's the second time I've seen it. But when you're in clinic and that thing's popping up again, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention too, it's a lot of overlap.
Yep.
We're getting at this point where we're hearing things, we're hearing about conditions, we're hearing about different symptoms and things to look at in 3-4 different classes from 3, 4 different angles: a pharmacology angle, a physiology angle. And we're just looking at it or hearing it so much, it starts, like you said, it starts to become like a second nature language, to where you're knowing these things to look for, and you're expecting this lab value based off of these symptoms. So it's really cool experience to see all these different light bulbs clicking in, and seeing all the different, connections starting to come together to make like a whole picture, so you can actually sit back and be like, all right, I actually do know what I'm doing. Again, goes back to what I'm saying.
Yep.
You know more than you actually think you know. So,
So let's pivot a little bit. What are you looking forward to for next year? How did you figure out what your plans were going to be? Who did you meet? Conferences, out of state, in state. What's on your mind for next year?
man, next year I'm hoping to stay do some South Florida. I love Florida. I've been, like I said, I'm a Florida native, but maybe get out of South Florida. I'm hoping maybe like a West Florida, maybe Tallahassee, definitely Orlando, and I want to check that place out. I'm also taking a look at Georgia. Also want to look at Texas. It's a little different for me. If it was, I do have a 1-year-old daughter and a fiance. So when we comes to like going around and doing clinical rotations 2 months at a time, like it's gonna be difficult to be bouncing around from different states and not being able to see my daughter, honestly. So if I'm lucky, I'll be able to go to one of these locations. Hopefully, I definitely want to go check out Georgia and Texas, but in between, come back to South Florida, just to get that, see my little baby. But Quad A, or was it Quad A? Yeah, Quad A was amazing. I spoke to so many different people. Like really made me have to like narrow
What is Quad
down.
A?
Quad A.
It's the big national conference where employers and student coordinators and program directors from all of those programs throughout the states come to meet.
Yeah, and share from not only come to meet, but share a lot of good information. There's a lot of good presentations given. Of course, there's a lot of different products that are out there that we didn't know, but mainly I want to say mainly it's opportunities for the AAs, whether it be you're graduating that year or you're looking to graduate in the following year. I've even seen some AAs getting pulled to the side and having some interviews right there on the spot.
Yeah,
So
we
that
were
was,
at the ground level of the hotel, and I heard, up on the sixth floor, back in my hotel room, interviews and job contracts are being
yeah,
signed at the hotel.
yeah. So it was like,
Major recruiting.
oh my, you want to talk about like motivation? Like, there's nothing more motivating to see you getting like coming in without a job and leaving with a job. Like, and the experience was amazing. The different locations all around the country, that is even Vermont. I didn't even know that
Yep.
they were out there representing. That was
I saw jobs from Vermont, Michigan,
Michigan,
Ohio, Texas, Indiana, like
Indiana.
everywhere.
So like it's like the world is your oyster basically, and it's just up to you to get to that position to where you're ready to accept any of these different offers or opportunities. And at that point in time, you got a menu. It's there.
How do you feel about like the sort of conception that AAs can't work in too many places, so you feel limited, or you feel like, I found that to be like a concern I had before I started, and then now I look at all the options, I look at all the job
Yeah.
I look at all the like recruiting we get, I look at all of that, and the states that are opening up now, Washington, Nevada, like all of that, and I'm like, man, I could go anywhere. Like we have so many options, and
So
so
many.
I really don't feel like too sad that I can't work in like one of the states that I can't work in.
Like, and it's the only state that I would want to work in is California. But at the same time, every other state that I do want to work in It's highlighted blue. So I'm not even worried about the ones that I can't work in. That was one of the main things that when I first found the AA profession was how limited was the options for the states that you could work in. And then literally by the time that I was able to get accepted, I want to say it was two more states that were added to that were added. So it was like,
Yeah.
and now that we're here, even while I was here, there was one more state that was added, and there's more on the list to be added. So it's like, uh, I don't feel limited by any means. Even just going into that exhibit hall and seeing how many opportunities were out there in Texas, and in Texas, you're thinking, okay, maybe Houston or Dallas, but there's Austin, there was Austin. There was so many hospitals in Dallas, and I'm sorry, not Dallas. So many hospitals in Houston. You had your Children's. You had Georgia, your Piedmonts. It was just so many, and it was like, okay, so like, why would I even want more options?
It's a hard enough decision
It's hard enough as it is
as it
already.
is. And they also were willing to talk about money, weren't they?
Oh
Like
yeah.
they were not
Oh
shy.
yeah.
Everything was like very very transparent, very upfront. I think at the high end for starting, I think I saw 250.
Mm-hmm.
And for like the low end, it was in maybe like the 180s,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between, maybe the middle of the roads and then like 220
Mm-hmm.
area starting.
Starting
Starting.
fresh out of school, starting signing with different incentives, crazy
How
incentives.
much how much pay time off?
Oh my God, it was like 6 to 8 weeks. I've seen 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks.
That's 2 months.
That's legitimate 2 months of not working. That's it's a good time to be. It's a
And
good
what were the
time.
overtime rates you heard of?
Oh my, $200 an
Oh
hour?
my gosh.
two
Shut
hundred
up.
dollars an hour? Like it
Shut
was
up.
it was it was insane. It was insane to even think that, especially coming from being an anesthesia tech, working.
Yeah, I was making like $40 an hour, and to see 200, this like earth shattering.
It's yeah, yeah. It's like I did make a good decision. I did make a good decision, and actually clears the windscreen a little bit, especially with all everything that gets thrown at you throughout the semester. It's the challenges, the tests, the clinical, the early mornings, and vision might get a little bit cloudy. Not to say that you don't want to keep going forward, but it's just a lot more challenging. If there's anything
I
that
felt
that
burnt out.
yeah,
I felt
definitely.
burnt out.
But that was a great refresher to be like, okay, reset button. You're
What are you here
you're
for?
this is what you're here for. And these people are not only showing you that they want you, but they want you, and they're going to show that they want you by definitely compensating you in many different ways. So it was awesome. So I definitely appreciated Quad A. It was like a work vacation, and I recommend it for anybody who's even interested. I know if you're not a student yet, they had a bunch of volunteers out there
Yeah,
just
there
to.
was plenty of like prospective students, applicants that showed
Mhm,
up to Quad A. I
mhm.
think some showed up to FAAA. That's our like state society, and I think it was probably really helpful for them. Sort of way for them to meet faculty, meet whoever, and shake hands. And
Even yeah, students
yep,
just to show or show shed some light on what they want to get into, and it's definitely a great opportunity. I wouldn't change that for anything. I love those conferences because it's like I keep saying, it's a refresher, but it's one of those things that if you want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's where you want to go.
yeah, it was sort of a great opportunity for me to go and meet with like prospective employers, meet with prospective like student rotation sites, and sort of actually figure out what I want and like what I'm looking for. Do you want somewhere that's gonna like have great case selection, but they're gonna work you 60 hours a week,
Hmm.
unpaid?
Hmm.
Do you want somewhere that's a little bit more quiet, or do you want somewhere that's in a city that you're gonna want to be in, but I ended up going for a lot of like level one, like
Yeah.
big hospital. That's what I'm hoping for next year. I want to do some cardiac. I want to do some of those like bigger hospitals and just get that under my belt. I'm excited. Next year, um, in a few months, we're going to start our second year or our senior like rotations, and that's going to be where we're just going sort of from hospital to hospital, 60 days or 30 days per hospital, and just working probably 5 days a week for a whole calendar year, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll come back, take boards, and sign some
And sign
contracts,
some
make
contracts.
some money.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's exciting time. I'm so excited because this work school. Oh, I'm sorry. I consider my clinical rotation like work.
Yeah, I say
Being
the same thing too. I say I'm going to work. These are my coworkers, and people are like, you have a job, like it's not really a
it's
job.
not
Like
really a
you
job.
go there, you have a boss, you clock in,
Hmm.
you clock out.
It's putting on that hat just to make
Yeah,
sure you
it feels like
stay.
work.
Yeah, you stay in that zone or that mode. And um, I'm a little bit untraditional where I'm 30. I keep forgetting 36 years old. And I'm not afraid to work. So when it comes back to working and then leaving work and then coming to school, I'm ready to just go to work. Even 2 months at a time, no, what do you say? No actual like compensation for it except for experience and the knowledge that you gain from it. But I'm ready for that. I'm excited to turn this next chapter. Um, get out of the classroom, start applying what we've learned, and start stepping towards what I'm going to be doing or where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Like you said, I'm excited to do those big cases. I've signed up for a couple level one traumas. I want to do some. I'm very interested in vascular and heart cases. So like I'm eager to close this chapter, but I also know that I have to be here and present to soak up everything I can from this semester so I can be the best when it gets to being in that clinical work setting for the next year. So I'm ready.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're now 36 or
Oh
37.
yeah.
What was your background? Like, how did you find out about this? Like, how did you get here?
Oh yeah. So I'm again South Florida raised. Went to school not too far from here, actually, right up University. I didn't even realize that, but right up University at Piper High School, and I graduated 2006. I was a full scholarship football player. I went to go play at Eastern Illinois University as a linebacker. Injuries stopped me from playing. I think my fourth year, and I was ready to work. I was done, being a scholarship athlete and not being able to actually get any income. Back then, there was no NIL. Right, that was actually the time when they stopped all the different like the video games because of likeness and image and all those different things. So it was definitely an interesting time, and I was ready to get out and start working. And I jumped out, started working, and dabbled in different areas. I was in sales. Um, did personal training. I did personal training for the longest stint, but I also worked in financial services. I got my Series 6. I got my 215 license. I was doing selling insurance and also annuities and different securities. And when COVID hit, for someone in that business that has to go out and meet new people every day, it really slowed things down. And at that point in time, I just sat back and was like, okay, the one group of people right now that are still up, running, functioning, making money are your essential workers. And I driving around during that time because my grandmother at the time, she was an essential worker. I would see of course the stores were still open, construction was still going on, and hospitals.
Yep.
And so I made sure I took a look at all those different, not the stores, I wasn't ready to do no retail, but construction and the hospitals, and I literally Google search ran into anesthesia assistant and looked up everything, kept digging, and the more I kept digging, the more I was loving. I called, picked up the phone, called here, and I'm grateful that I was able to get the person that I did. Or I don't think she works here anymore, but she was able to walk me through everything except my transcripts and basically told me what I needed to do to get here. And that started 2020. After I was able to get done with all my prerequisites, it was just a fact of being able to make sure I was polished enough on paper to get into the program. So prior to completing my prereqs, I actually jumped into the hospital. My thought process was like, all right, they want a anesthesia assistant. I'm gonna be anesthesia tech,
The
and
same thing.
right, and the thing about it was they weren't hiring anesthesia techs at that time. For some reason, there was like a freeze or
It's kind of a
whatever.
hard place to get
It
into.
definitely is a hard place. And I think mainly because the OR is such a special place. You have, these big wig characters. You mean your surgeons, your anesthesiologists that are very particular with different things. The culture of the OR is a little different than your normal work setting. So I think it's more of I think that's why it's a lot harder to get into that position. So what I did initially was I got into the lab. Any position that was open, I applied for it. Went to the
What
hospital.
are some of the positions you applied for? Like when you were first sort of like
Um,
throwing out your net?
the lab assistant, environmental working for like just cleaning up the hospital, whatever it would be, like a radio tech. I did every opportunity that didn't require like a
Yep.
specialized degree. I put in for it, and
How many like callbacks did you get for all of
I got
those?
one. And I want to say that actually I got more than one, but the first one I took it, and so the ones that I got after, I didn't really care about. But I literally walked up to the hospital, spoke to different people. Hey, I'm trying to get in, and no one's calling me back, and that kind of pushed things a little bit further for me. And that's how I got into the lab assistant portion. And from there, I worked there for a year.
Yeah, for anyone applying to jobs, make sure to go and call them. Be like, hey, I sent in my application a week ago. I'm really interested. Or email,
I,
call,
I'm
whatever.
my
Let them know you want it.
my lab, yeah, exactly. My line was, I'm checking the status of my application. I put in my application this date, know when I put in an application, and I'm checking the status of my application. And they got back to me. I signed in as a lab assistant. Actually, with my prerequisites that I was finishing, I got a chance to work in a microbiology lab. And when the opportunity came back for anesthesia tech, I jumped on it right away. And that was another hassle. No,
How'd you hear about that?
actually, one of my coworkers that actually looked out for me so much at in the lab. She was like, "Oh, I just seen this anesthesia tech position come up. You should apply." And I was like, "I applied already, and nothing happened." She was like, "Just apply to this one." So I did it. A week went by, a month went by, nothing. So I ended up leaving because I worked overnight. I chose the overnight shift. Leaving at 8 a.m. to went downstairs to the OR, spoke to whoever. I didn't know where I was or who I was. I was actually in the PACU area, and I spoke to one of the nurses, and I was like, "Listen, I put in my application. I work upstairs in the laboratory, and it's a big holdup. I want to see if I can get in, not only to get the anesthesia tech position, but I also want to shadow." And they put me in contact with the chief of anesthesia, which I didn't know that was the chief at the time. Called her, spoke to her. She was like, "Okay, I'll set you up for tomorrow." So literally after my shift the next night at 8 a.m., I went downstairs and basically spoke to the head anesthesia tech and the doctor that actually referred me to him. And I sat down there for another 5, 6 hours and let them know, like, hey, I put in an application. I don't know what's going on with recruiters or whatever. And they actually pushed everything through. They got to the recruiters, they pushed it through for me. And yeah, About a week later, I was getting calls like, "Hey, we're ready to put you on. You got the job. This is what the pay is. You're gonna have to take a pay cut from where I was because I worked my butt off in that lab to where I got to a certain, pay range, whatever."
What did they pay you?
Oh my God, they took me from like $22 an hour, especially at night. It was a little bit more, and they brought me back down to 17. Punch in the gut. It was terrible, but it was since I didn't have any experience as an anesthesia tech. They brought it back down. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll take it. This is what I want to do. This is for the experience. And that actually helped me out because that was something that I said when I was recruited during the process of, interviews and stuff. And
Did
I,
you mention that you were wanting to do AA in your interviews?
oh yeah, definitely. I literally the same picture that I painted for right now. I told them the same thing because for someone that is that determined, not just, okay, my grades are great and I'm going to apply to this thing. No, for somebody that shows that they're willing to do nothing that has anything to do with it just to get to that position where you can have something that has everything to do with it. And I say everything, you're not taking care of patients, but we're taking care of the anesthesia machine. And that's
So what
the
does an
workstation.
anesthesia tech actually do, and how is it different from what we're studying now?
So the anesthesia tech, they're like your Swiss Army knife when it comes to like, okay, I need another set of hands. I need, a certain set of equipment, or I just need a turnover. And in the business of anesthesia, your that turnover of the room is very important. So having an extra set of
Time is
hands,
money, right?
time is money. The
Or time is
OR time is big money,
double money.
big money.
Yeah, big money.
So to have somebody to come in and come out and take care of those little things for you while you're getting the next patient ready is huge. And I didn't even understand that as an anesthesia tech, honestly. But when you're rolling your patient out and you're going to pre-op your next patient and you roll back into the room and everything's taken care of, it's like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I completely understand. But
I have like a newfound respect for techs now that like I'm on the other side of the fence, and I come into the room and everything's set up and the cables are all done and the machine's checked out and the capnography is all set up and
I'll
it's just everything's perfect. I see the machine check out done. I look at my date. Yep, that was
say,
today. I'm like, thank you,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And I was the guy that actually stayed overnight to make sure every machine check. And I was at Memorial Regional. There's like 20 something machines that need to be checked. So at midnight, I would go around and check every single one of them just to make sure that the next day everything was squared away for everyone that was coming in, and making sure the blades were on the table, all that good stuff. So from on as an anesthesia tech on the low end, it's cleaning cords, doing your machine check, setting up the equipment. But on the more technical end, you could actually be holding like a ultrasound probe, or scrubbing in to like make sure that you're holding a sterile area for the doctor or for the provider to do a certain procedure. So there's a wide range of different things. There's a wide range of experience that you get as an anesthesia tech. To me, the most important thing was that OR culture, being in an OR, knowing, okay, you see blue, stay away from the blue. You see that doctor coming in and he's doing his thing. You just know that there's different characteristics, different personalities that go with it. You learn so many things just by sitting and observing, and if as an anesthesia tech. So I think that was one of my, and oh yeah, I'm fearless of the machine. The machine is nothing to me. That's the least of my worries, right? Because I used to handle those things every single day. So that confidence coming in as an anesthesia from being an anesthesia tech was a big thing to me. So, or a big help for me, at
And you
least in the
weren't a
first
tech for too
semester.
long before you started.
Oh
I
no,
was a tech for 9 months.
yeah, I was a tech for a year.
And I think that was the perfect amount of time where you got to see pretty much all you were going to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the perfect sort of way to lead into what we're doing now, which is, actually worrying about the patient and their health conditions, the medications, and like the medical management of a real human
Of a
being.
real human being. So that's the flip side, right? Um, I could say the most vivid thing I can have as an anesthesia tech was spiking maybe like 10 10 units of blood, 10 units of blood, 10 units of blood. And then it's like, okay, let's do this one now, the FFP. And not understanding, now I understand why there's a ratio from blood to factors. And those were like, that's the main difference. I would say that was just more manual labor as far as, I need you to do this. So sometimes I asked why, sometimes I didn't. But of course, in the heat, in the moment, in the trauma, and things are going down, you're not asking why. But
For me, it was Jonah, go grab the crash cart, go get the defibrillator.
but
They'll
now
make the heavy decisions, but you'll do the legwork.
you'll do the legwork. But the person that actually grabs that defibrillator knows how many joules to put it on, knows when to shock, knows when not to shock. All these different things is what we actually learned in this seat. Coming to be we're as a student anesthesia assistant, in that perspective. So it was a great experience, but it was literally just in a analogy, it's like stepping down 2 feet on the first step in the pool. Like you're definitely getting your feet wet, but it's not the full experience of what we've been going through this past. But it's definitely a good experience.
Yeah, I definitely felt like the step from anesthesia tech to just student AA was like a lot bigger than I was expecting. I thought it might be like a sort of like eased in, and it put me up like a little bit of an advantage. But that quickly wore off, especially when we started getting really into the nitty gritty of like cardiac physiology, pulmonary physiology, and you're thinking about like 30, 40 different medications that you need to be giving and not be giving, and how much to give, and it's really like a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I would say the playing field, as far as like me feeling like I had an advantage, the playing field was evened out like quick. Once we got past a certain, stage, and I want to say like maybe like our first or second semester, everybody was on the same level. We all know how to do this. Now let's move forward to more of the physiological and medical management of your actual patient. So
How do you think your time spent in the lab and your time as an anesthesia tech like contributed to your application getting accepted, all of that? And I think you mentioned you were retaking classes at some point.
yeah, so that the lab portion, it was definitely like, even when we speak about lab stuff right now, I have more of a personal touch to exactly what is going on there. At that time, I just felt like I was just moving tubes for tubes, centrifuge, bring it to this department, bring it to this department, whatever. But now I actually know how they're analyzed, the time it takes to analyze them, and the process it takes. And it gives me more of a personal touch to actual lab values and the processes it takes to actually get that value and the people that are actually doing it for you. Other than that, there wasn't really anything that I could say here that was like, okay, I definitely got an advantage there. But it's
But
definitely
it was your stepping
it
stone.
was my stepping stone to getting not only to the anesthesia portion, but understanding the hospital as a whole. It's a big working machine. That lab shuts down, everything shuts down. And that was something that I realized. That's why that sucker runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no, okay, the lab's closed today for a holiday. No, that lab is working. And those, people on in your ICU floors, people coming in through the ER, people on the actual operating table, they're drawing their blood and they're sending it to one place so they can get results, so a doctor can make the correct diagnosis for the next plan of care. So understanding the whole machine was definitely, I think for me, especially somebody that was never in healthcare, and aspiring to be there, especially in that operating room, I think it was like the best possible scenario for me. And then being able to like dip my foot in microbiology, I did a lot of the plating and setting up for the cultures that they would have, whether it be CSF, sputum, whatever it was. blood cultures, fecal cultures, everything. We had to uh, get that prepared and incubated for all the cultures and stuff. But
Do you think you would have gotten accepted here? Do you think you'd be here today if didn't do those two jobs, the lab and the anesthesia tech? Like, or do you think it would
I
be
I I th-
critical?
I think it was important. Again, I'm not your traditional student. There's a big gap from my undergrad to now, and I don't think that would have been something that took away from me, but I think me going through those routes showed that okay, this guy is serious. This guy wants to be here and he's doing everything in his power to be here. So I do think that was important in my actual acceptance into the program.
I think you also met some people that were like alumni or worked here
Oh
or
yeah. Oh yeah.
so in the hospital. So
Hmm.
that can't be understated.
That yeah. Definitely some alumni worked hand to hand, or I was always in his face, but the director of the program, yeah, and did everything that I could, and not just putting on, just doing my best to be the best anesthesia tech at the time that I could be.
And they
And
also probably got to tell you like what it's like to be an AA and if they recommend it or not. It's very hard to get a physician doctor to like endorse you to go to medical school. Like, oh yeah, no, you should go. Like it's really great.
hmm
But I felt like the opposite experience was true for like AAs. I felt like they were all like super supportive. All the AAs I worked were back in DC. They were all Case Western alum, but even then they were just like super supportive of like endorsing me for the program or like wanting to see me succeed, even like teaching me things then. And they were just like super excited and passionate. And everyone is now, especially like in the clinic. I feel like most of our preceptors are like enthusiastic about
oh yeah.
seeing us grow and
Well, yeah.
get into this and building out the profession.
Um, the most important aspect I think was the support behind. Yeah, like you mentioned. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing AA for school. I'm thinking about putting an application, and you're hearing the doctors, the nurses, the AAs. Yeah, you should do it. Go ahead and do it, man. I would if I were to go back and do it all over again. That's where I was like, okay,
I wish I could do it, but I'm getting old and I
I'm
have
get
all this
yeah.
things weighing me down.
This is the time for you to. I'm like, all right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the trigger. I mean, that was the main reason I'm here in the first place, but it was just something that reminder is like, okay, you definitely can do it. Not only do you know you can do it, but these people see that you can do it based off of what their experience with you. So it was definitely a great support system coming through. Either it was the lab to the actual OR. Yeah.
So you mentioned you have a daughter. So how do you sort of like negotiate the balance of like fatherhood and working and I'm sure this is demanding for you on both fronts.
Oh yeah, man. It's tough. It's really tough because these are those stages. She's one. Her birthday's in September, and she's learning so much. She's, she. This is the. I want to say I do have some more time where she's going to be growing and absorbing a lot more information, but just it's tough leaving the house before she wakes up and getting back literally an hour, 2 hours before it's her bedtime. So knowing that I don't get that much time with her and having to juggle I need to go study, and I seriously, like, I need some time to go study, and I don't know about anybody else, it's really tough for me to study at home, especially after a long day. So having to actually leave her or wait till she goes to sleep to head out again, or don't probably not even see her throughout the whole day, it's really tough in the sense that I do want to be there. I do want to help out. And especially, I don't want my fiance to feel like she's alone, just handling the baby by herself. And it's really tough in that aspect of things. But she understands. She works with me. I do get some grief sometime for it. And I do be messing up sometimes, not gonna lie. It's just trying, it's you know how important this opportunity is, and doing my best not to be selfish in those moments, understanding that your partner does need a break as well. You know, it's a full-time job taking care of a 1-year-old. You know, you gotta keep your eye on them. You got to keep them entertained. You got to keep them engaged. Make sure they're safe. Make sure they're fed. Make sure they're clean. Right. So it's like all those little things. Make sure I'm not being selfish as like being selfish in those moments, and knowing that, okay, I do need to go back home and give her a break a little bit, and then I'll come back in and, you know, do what I have to do, sacrifice wherever I have to sacrifice, because she's already sacrificing all those hours without me being there. So it's tough, but it's definitely doable. We have another classmate, his daughter's 2 days older than mine. So like, and we're doing it. So like, for anybody that's out there that has a young child or has a child, there's also, he has 3 kids. Yeah, one of our classmates has 3 kids. So it's like, if you have kids, it helps to have some type of support, but it's definitely doable. Tough. I think I have a harder, you know, than you guys.
It's not fair.
Yeah, how many times I wish I just want to go blow off some steam, but nah, I gotta go watch the baby. Sometimes you want to go blow off some steam, nah. I just blow off some steam with her. I will go for a walk or something, but other than that, it definitely is tough, but it's definitely doable.
No, but I think it's great, especially you'll be out of here really soon. It's just one more year, and then you'll be in a great spot to take great care of her.
That's I always tell myself, short-term sacrifice for long-term reward. And 2 years, when by the
The
time
first year already went by fast, right?
really quick, so quick. By the time she's 3 years old, I'm gonna have to worry about it. I'll buy her a pony or something. I don't
You fire.
know. I would say, as far as my experience goes, this has probably been one of the most challenging things that I've had to do. Getting in was one of the hardest things that I had to do, and now that I'm in, holding my position is even tougher. But it's one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. I would say, right next to like seeing my daughter, learn different, break different milestones. This is definitely right up there, because knowing that you're picking things up out of a book, and then you're going to a clinical site, and you have this actual person that you're having to take care of, and everything, and majority of the things that you've learned are able to translate. And I say majority because sometimes in a book, you're not going to get the same thing with the person right in front of you, but that's what you get with the experience. That's what you get with your preceptor, letting you know that, it's different strokes for different folks, in a sense of not it's not a one size fits all category, but it's definitely rewarding when it comes to just like understanding that you're able to apply everything that we've been
When it
force
goes when it
feeding
goes
ourselves.
well, it feels so good,
Oh my
doesn't it?
God. We've been force
When you
feeding
get the
ourselves for a
line, when you get the
year.
intubation, when you push the right drugs, when it goes right,
When you're even
you're
even when
electric.
even when it sways a little bit, and you go somewhere, something comes up in your head like, hey, maybe I should give him some albumin. And you do that, and everything's fixed. It feels great. Like, it feels great knowing that, of course, everything goes smooth. It's, oh my God, I'm doing it. But when things are not going smooth, and you're able to work through the problem and fix it based off of the things you've learned. Oh, that's even oh it's
And you also get to look up to like your preceptor sometimes. I think we had one case where I think they entered either VTAC or supraventricular tachycardia, and my preceptor at the time, it was like my first month in the operating room,
oh man.
and at the time he was just cool as a crash cart. Get the pads. He pushed the esmolol, and like they normalized. But just seeing him like go, like he was ready for it, and you
Mm-hmm.
could tell that like he's been through it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of gave me something to like look up to, and it's like I was trying to run in my mind like, oh, what's the algorithm? What drug do we go for? But he was just 1, 2, 3, and he was quick on it. And that's something to look forward to. And you get to look around, especially at Quad A and in the clinic, and you get to see these people who are like at the top of their game. Like some of these people are really like they know their stuff.
You have there's anesthesiologists or anesthesia providers, and then you have your top gun anesthesia providers. And I aspire to be one of the top guns, but just sitting back and be able to, in my naivete, you don't know what a top gun is yet. We're still we're just now we're on that second or third step, dipping into the pool. So like sitting back and being able to watch different styles and how everybody does this, how their wake up technique is compared to, this person, just soaking it all up right now and being able to see the different styles in treatment. I think this is probably one of the best portions right now is I actually know what I'm doing now. Just get past the hoops and things that I had to going through it in my head. Now let's just sit back and soak it all up and see how you can apply it to your practice.
I think we're finally getting to that stage where you know enough where you can sort of learn at a more comfortable pace. I felt like the first year was a lot of like it was very stressful. And when you don't know everything, and even when they tell you to like read a chapter in the book, you go and sit down and you read the book. And I tell you what, you make it one sentence in, and you have to start looking things up.
Yeah.
Because you can't even read the book.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what all the acronyms mean. You don't know what the vocabulary is. You don't know what they're talking about. So even now, I can actually sit down in front of a book and read it, and it pretty much makes sense.
It makes sense.
So I feel like now we're at a place where like we can actually learn and more comfortable and pick up on some more fine details. It's hopefully going to be a little bit less stressful because
we'll see.
We were all feeling the burnout, I think.
Oh my, were we? And right now we're in like a little safe spot. Only thing we have to worry about is our clinical rotations. So it's a good place to be at the moment because we're not doing the school back and forth hop, but it's still when I say it's a great refresher to know that we just hit the reset button.
I swear, before we'll be having our like graduation podcast.
Oh yeah, bro. The fact that we know 2 months flies, or rotation flies. We'll literally be at 5, maybe 6 rotation sites. We'll be back here preparing for
boards.
Yep. For our board review and be ready to take the big test. But we literally only have like 3 months together again, man. Only like 3 months until we're out, doing our thing.
I'll be going all over, and I feel really lucky to do that because I pretty much got. Well, I haven't got my schedule yet, but I pretty much got everything that I want. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get everything that I requested, which is really great knowing that I get exactly like the rotations that I want, and I speak to the people who are there, and we'll set it up for you.
Yeah.
That's what Quad A was for me.
I got one of them that was like that, and I'm excited because it's in Orlando. That's one of the places that I want to move, and I've thought about that for a long time. So it's exciting, and it's exactly what I want to be. Hopefully, I'll be doing vascular there with the person that I want to learn vascular from. So it's
Florida's a nice spot. There's a lot of popping spots.
Oh, definitely.
I like it here.
Definitely. Been here my whole life, so I can't wait to step out and see what else the good old United States has for me. But in this time right now, just gonna take it slow, soak up this little zone that we're in, or this little period that we're in, and get ready to sharpen our tools out there and do our thing in the different sites that we get a chance to go to. But yeah.
All right, Nate, future's looking bright. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. Been a long time coming, sir.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's go.